Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist as well as a body language expert, and today we're going to be doing a forensic analysis of the police body cam footage the day after Brian Kohberger murdered 4 Idaho college students. Before we get started, a couple of quick things. One, I wanted to make sure you know this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. Now, this is a long video, so I'm just going to be playing the most important segments, but this is the day after the Idaho student murders. This police officer does not know that he is preparing to walk into a murder scene.
Yep. Where's she at? Where's she at?
Yes.
You can already hear their voices wavering, and this means there's adrenaline pumping through their system. This means that they are anxious. Now, it doesn't seem that they fully understand what's going on. From my understanding, the police believed that someone was passed out at this point, so that's what he's responding to. As you can see right here, I want to show you what this student is doing when he gets in a little bit further.
Where at? Up here?
Up here. You got
Something you may already be noticing, and I want you to look out for, is how tight everything in this house is. The stairway is small, everything is very windy, which would have added to the chaotic nature of what was going on.
I'm 13. Okay, get back.
So as you can hear in the officer's voice, even just briefly, everything changed right there. You hear the tension in his voice almost immediately. Once adrenaline starts pumping, once the body starts tightening up, you are in protection mode because this is not what he anticipated. And that's a big part of what we're going to be talking about today, is the expectations were defied. Nobody was going to expect what happened. Nobody is going to expect what they saw. So it's going to be very hard for people's brains to recognize and reconcile with what was actually going on and what actually happened. When they talk to one of the roommates later about what they recall, we're going to get much more into that. But now I'm going to jump back. Let's listen to this police officer for a second.
Okay, get back.
I don't know if they're still in here or not.
1370.
And you could hear the student was speaking and the officer didn't even respond. He is now laser focused on what's happened. I'm just going to skip ahead because he's exploring the room and everything's redacted as it should be. Now, I mentioned I was going to point out what this student was doing. You see this position right here? Hands over his head, elbows up. We do that when we're in a panicked mode because it forces us to breathe through our diaphragm. So if you try to do that and take a breath through your chest, you just can't do it. So it's not like you consciously think that you need to do this. Your body just automatically does it. But that's a way to try to force yourself to calm down a little bit. You oftentimes see people who have been in tragedies or who have been in some sort of catastrophe doing this exact thing. So this body stance does force you to breathe through your diaphragm. So we're going to be talking a lot about trauma in this video so you can better understand why these reactions are pretty much what you would expect.
Okay. Nobody's allowed to leave for now, okay? Just stay here for me, please.
So you can hear the wavering in his voice, which is completely understandable because, once again, the amount of adrenaline pumping through your veins does not allow you to have an even, steady voice, particularly because he wasn't expecting it. If someone said you were getting ready to walk into a crime scene that looks like this, and he did, it would be totally different. It would be activating in that sense, but it would probably feel very, very different. The unexpected nature of what happened is such a big piece of the intensity of the trauma that occurs in an experience like this.
Can you guys go over to the dumpster for me, please?
You notice how slow everybody's walking? It's almost like being in a daze. When you dissociate, part of trauma is dissociation. So in other words, you are taking a step out of reality a little bit. Sometimes time can get compressed, sometimes it can get elongated, but it affects your perception. And this happens with PTSD. It happens in short term if there's been a trauma. And all of these students are going through a trauma right now. They don't know what's happened. The unpredictable nature of what's going to happen next is also adding to that. So you have to understand, really making sense of trauma is understanding how unpredictability has completely thrown off their worldview. I do feel like watching this, seeing him put out the tape, this does ground us in the fact that this is very much real. This happened. This is not some abstract idea. This isn't a story. These were kids. These were real families that were affected by this tragedy. And it's just so, for me at least, it's very, very hard to watch this.
Okay, let's clear it. Thanks for...
And you look at the position of the student here, it's just absolute grief, just shutting down. You know, you put your head down, arms out, just essentially hiding from the world right then because it is so overwhelming, it's so overbearing. Once again, these are all things that we typically see when there are tragedies like this.
Who's over here?
Okay.
I'll just start down here.
And you can hear the voice of the officer whose body cam is on. You can hear his voice change. The adrenaline has settled down. He's trained for these kinds of things, but it was so unexpected. That's what caused that reaction.
Police department.
Police department.
So even as they're actively looking for somebody, this goes back into training mode. Immediately, I think that once the adrenaline settles down, once you know what you're dealing with, then it goes back to just following what you know how to do. And so all of the feelings probably get set aside right now. Now it's just in the mode of like, let me make sure that everybody's safe. Back into that sort of mindset.
Can you go see what you can track this?
Check with the prints.
One thing that's also striking is how normal everything looks. This looks like what a house looks like after there's been a party. For anybody that partied in college, this should all look pretty standard. And that's part of what I also want you to keep in mind, because once we're getting to the interview with the roommate, it's really going to sink in why they didn't call the police immediately, why there was so much confusion around this. Because once again, I don't find anything strange or out of place about any of this. This is pretty much how you would expect that a crime scene like this would look. And it's also pretty much how you would expect that people would react in a crime scene like this. You see how everybody's huddled together. Typically, when you see people, if they're not in an emergency situation, they'll be more spread out. They'll be more casual. We do this type of solidarity. We do this for protection. I don't think they're actively worried about anything happening, but everybody knows it's a crisis. Everybody is traumatized right now. So you are seeing people huddle together because of that reason. Now, you'll notice that this one student does not have her shoes or gloves on or anything, and it's probably quite cold. Because you tend to numb out during this. You just can't think straight. This is part of dissociation. You just lose contact with your sensations. You lose contact with time. All of these kinds of things impact how we sense the world.
In the main room.
This is one of the...
Pretty much they were in the main room. I heard them dancing and laughing. Kaylee went upstairs and she screamed because someone was in the room and she ran downstairs. And I kept calling her name and she wouldn't answer. And then I saw the guy. I just locked the door and then I ran downstairs. We don't know what's going on.
So you see her almost bracing herself with her pants right now as she's talking about this. You hear the pressure in her voice. She's probably making the connections with what she experienced the night before and what actually happened. It's probably all starting to feel a bit real. So there's a little bit of panic coming through as she's talking about this. You can hear how fast she's speaking. It's going to make an extremely intense emotional experience to try to piece all this stuff together.
Can you come here with me, please?
And you can hear the way that she's breathing. She's hyperventilating a little bit because the body takes in extra oxygen when we're starting to freak out a little bit so that we can protect ourselves, so that we can run, because the body runs on oxygen. So if you're over-oxygenated, you have more energy. So sometimes we hyperventilate when we're freaking out for that very reason. So there's a reason that she's breathing so hard.
Break Fire 3170. Could you guys grab some blankets for all these people out here?
Oh, okay.
You see how her hands are covered in front of herself. just trying to protect herself right now, emotionally, if nothing else, but just not knowing what's going on. That sense of confusion is going to make her feel like she needs to be protected.
Nope. Just come over here with me, please.
And I was trying to go to bed, and I heard Kaylee, who, ex-girlfriend, who also has a dog Murphy.
Real fast. Which one is your room?
Kaylee.
Which one is your room?
Oh.
What room are you in?
So when they're asking her about factual things like which one room is hers, she's going to be more animated. That gets back into the intellectual part of the brain. Much easier to respond right now than the emotional part of the brain. So as she talks about emotions, it may be more fragmented. It may be more confused. But when he's asking her something like, which room is yours? Those will be much easier for her to access.
You were in that room?
My room, not Xander's room. My room.
And your room is this one right here?
Next to the stairs. That one is Xander's room.
Second floor room.
Second floor.
Okay.
All I heard was I heard her go upstairs. Like, okay, I'm gonna go to sleep now because she's going upstairs.
And you heard who go upstairs?
Kaylee and the dog Murphy.
And upstairs to the very top?
Yeah, that's where her room is.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, her walking up, I heard her.
You can hear people crying louder in the background. The reality of this is starting to settle in a little bit more. The dissociation may be lifting a little bit, but it's going to go in and out because that's just the way that trauma works.
Scream, and she ran downstairs because she saw someone. That's what I'm pretty sure she said. Someone's here, and she screamed and just ran downstairs. And I called for her name, but I jumped up and locked my door because I was so scared. And then I heard someone in the bathroom, and I heard her crying, and I heard some guy say that you're going to be okay, I'm going to help you.
So if you're curious as to why you wouldn't call the police right away, I want you to think about if you went to college parties. If I went to UGA, I went to plenty. I'm very familiar with what the typical sort of response at college parties is. And if there was something crazy going on, if you were in your room, you might not think about it. There could be screaming and hollering and fighting. There's all sorts of things. You might come out and look, or you might not. The idea that they moved on after this may seem strange, but it truly isn't, because there's no part of any of their realities that would have thought my friends are going to get murdered tonight. That is just not how the human mind works when you're in a normal situation. Let's keep going. I've got more to say on that, but I want to get to some other parts first.
And I kept calling her name, but she wasn't answering. And then I opened the door for a second, and I saw this guy, and he was not insanely tall, but he was wearing all black and like this mask that was just covering his forehead and his mouth. And then I locked the door, and I called, and I didn't know what to do.
You see how she's moving her hand as she talks about this? This is tapping deeply into how she feels about this. It's almost like she's reenacting it. Obviously, she's reenacting it in her mind. Physically, we tend to reenact things a little bit as well.
Just at 4
a.m., yes. Okay. And so then I just ran down to
you left here?
I left my room down to she's that one with the white blinds at the very bottom. Okay. I ran down there and we talked, and we just locked the door. We didn't think anything up.
You see her how she continues to talk with her hands. We do this when we really want to connect with somebody. She really wants the officer to know what she knows. She really wants to get her point across. So if you're wondering why she keeps opening up the blanket, keeps talking with her hands, that's a way that we communicate very effectively when we really want to be heard. So I can understand why she's doing that.
We're like, nothing happens in Moscow, so we just like try to go to bed. And then we woke up, and it was weird because none of our roommates were up, and we called all of them. They were not waking up.
Nothing happens in Moscow. That's one of the most important things that she's had to say in terms of understanding the trauma here. This is not part of their reality. It's important to get this because when they see their friend laying on the ground, they were going to assume they're passed out drunk. When they hear people running around, they might just interpret it as people being crazy college students. The sounds they heard, the things they saw are not going to make sense to them in this context at this point, because that is just reality breaking for them. Because who would expect this, particularly a bunch of college students trying to have fun? This is no part of how they see the world.
It was weird because none of our roommates were up, and we called all of them. They were not waking up, and so me and like, this is weird. So I called and to come over, and then that's when all this happened.
Who all lives here?
And then there's Maddie, Mogan, and Kaylee up top. I don't know where they're at though.
Maddie,
Mogan.
So they don't even know where two of them are right now. They are not fully aware of the scope of this tragedy.
All right, describe the guy that you saw.
I don't think he was a little bit taller than me. And I couldn't really see much of him, but I'm almost positive he was wearing a full black outfit, and he had this mask that was just over his forehead and over his mouth, and he didn't say anything to me, like, at all. I just shut the door and locked it because I didn't know what to do. And I think he went out, like, the side door, the sliding door in the kitchen that goes out to the backyard.
Okay.
And then
See, there are a lot of details that she saw, that she connected with, but she just didn't make the association with how dangerous the situation was.
I didn't know anything else, so I called, and I was like, I just need to come downstairs and find you because I don't know where anyone else is. And I called Maddie, I called Dana, I called Kaylee, no one would answer.
You first noticed a guy.
Well, I first noticed Kaylee go upstairs and scream and run downstairs.
So 4 this morning, Kaylee went upstairs
Yeah.
to the way top.
Yes, to her room with Murphy the dog.
Okay.
And then
And you heard Kaylee scream.
I heard her scream and run as fast as she could downstairs, and she said someone's here.
She ran downstairs.
Yes, I could hear. You can hear everything pretty much. I heard her run downstairs really fast, and I remember her sobbing. And I just remember hearing this guy's voice that I didn't recognize saying, "You're gonna be okay, I'm gonna help you." But it wasn't like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it wasn't in like a nice way. It was like a weird way.
So the weird tone she's talking about when somebody says, I'm going to help you, when obviously that's not their intent, we can pick up on those kinds of things really well. The one thing that we're really good at doing is identifying when something doesn't seem authentic. Human beings are very, very good at that. So when he was trying to manipulate his victims, saying this, I suppose, to try to lull in some sort of false sense of security, it would have sounded weird. It would have sounded chilling. There would have been a very strange quality to it, I'm sure. And that's exactly what she's referencing right now.
Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it wasn't in like a nice way. It was like a weird way, like a weird tone.
You're gonna be okay.
And you see how she's playing with her hands right now. Even recalling that tone is making her more and more uncomfortable, understandably.
I'm gonna help you.
Yeah.
And you didn't hear anything from Kaylee anymore at that
No,
point?
after that I didn't hear anything. So then I kept calling for her name. I called on my phone, I called Xana, Maddie, and Kaylee. None of them answered. So then I opened up the door to look, and that's when I saw the guy pass by. He looked at me, but he didn't come towards me or say anything, which was really confusing to me. I don't understand that. And I'm pretty sure he went out the side door. And then I called, and I didn't think anything about fire or firework.
Or
until
gunshot
I told her.
or
I don't
anything.
think I heard anything of that, but I also was kind of in and out of it because I was so scared and I was really tired. And that's when I called and I told her, I need to come to your room because she was the only one that was answering me. So I just ran down there, and for a second I stopped and I saw Xana passed out, and I thought maybe she was just like sleeping or something. I didn't think anything because I was so out of it. And I went into the room and we just fell asleep. And then we woke up this morning and no one was waking up at all. Like, no one was answering, which was really weird because all of us wake up around like 9 or 10. And then I called
And there she was talking about how weird it was. It would have been scary, and maybe there's a little part of her that would have started to feel a little bit of panic at that time, but it wouldn't have really crossed her mind, I don't think, until it all started coming together as to what actually happened. So even in those moments, even in those early morning moments, she's not going to have pieced everything together.
I don't really know what he looked like because he had a mask, but he wasn't like super tall.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'10". I think it was maybe my height an inch or two higher or lower. I can't really remember.
So about 6 foot.
I think so. Around there.
How was he built? Fat, skinny, stocky?
More like skinny, but like basketball player kind of skinny. Like not too skinny, but like almost fit skinny in a way. That's what
She's very detail-oriented, and she's very good at this. Some people, when they go through this kind of trauma, cannot recall details, and that plays against them because people go, well, why can't you remember? You should remember this accurately. But because of the way that trauma works, sometimes memory can become very fragmented. So I give her a lot of credit for being able to recall the level of detail that she does. And some people are like that. Some people are better with details than others. But it really is fortunate that she was able to get through all this. I'm going to show one last bit. I'm just going to show a little bit of the police officer recounting what he was told by the roommate, because she did such an incredible job of describing what happened. Despite all of the trauma and confusion and everything else that had gone on, I think that she created a very compelling and important, and it sounds like very accurate narrative of what went on that night.
Before she saw a guy masked about 6 foot, skinny build like a basketball player, she described. Said that he had a just full black mask, see, like a ski mask. What time? At about 4. Immediately after, she yelled and said, "There's someone in the house." This girl ran, locked herself in a room, could hear a roommate that was upstairs, Kaylee. Somehow she was able to discern that it was Kaylee screaming. Then she could hear this masked man saying...
All right, we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. Hopefully this is helping you better understand some of what we saw on the body cam today. What I really want you to take away from this is the profound impact of trauma, and to understand everybody's going to experience trauma differently. What happened was wildly unexpected, as it would be for anybody. But these college students are not going to be able to process this easily. The most important thing they can do is to talk about it. When they feel sad about it, when things come up about it, when they feel scared about it, to talk to somebody, whether it's a professional, a friend, a family member, anybody who can listen, anybody who you trust. Being able to talk and process these emotions is the best way to take some of the feelings out of it, to make it a narrative, to make it something that has happened, but not something that controls your life. Because that can so often happen with trauma, is that your life becomes centered around this trauma. And until you've processed it all, you can't let go of it. And so you have to just keep on processing it. It's a long, laborious, frustrating task, but these are issues that can be resolved. If you have any thoughts about this, if there's any other evidence you want me to analyze, if there's anything else about this case you want me to take a look at, please let me know in the comments below. Last thing before we get finished up is I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, thanks for watching.